Seester, like I said, the physical media stuff is kind of a hot topic, and I wrote some notes down to kind of remember, and I thought about writing it to you so you could read them all together at your convenience, but then again, you wouldn't get the chance to see my pretty face. So anyway, I have several movies behind me, which shows you I'm a movie expert, so I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if she's playing. Anyway, here's one. I got several thoughts here I'd like to share, if I may. The Sony deal is for video games in the UK. It does not affect the United States. It does not affect movies in the United States. The UK licenses were held by Sony, and PlayStation had an agreement that had the agreement to sell games that were technically held by Sony. So US licenses state that the parent company, like Sony, holds the sell rights. Now, if they want to stop selling a movie, they can. However, if someone has purchased a digital copy, the buyer keeps it because the license agreement says they can no longer sell the title, which doesn't affect buyers who have already purchased the movie. Again, that's here in the United States. The UK doesn't have that agreement. They keep it here in America. I ran into a similar issue with Llamageddon on Amazon. If you search for it on Prime, it's unavailable. It's no longer available. You can't rent it or watch it or anything. But because I bought it for a few dollars, it's still in my purchase queue, and I can watch it whenever I want. Score. And I have done so. Awesome movie. Anyway, one of the things I think is great about physical media is that you're not beholden to any corporation. See, corporations may change leadership, they may change their policies, they may also normalize being dependent on a corporation for entertainment instead of letting us have the freedom to choose what we want, when we want it, and for as long as we want it. See, like, I was able to watch The Sopranos on HBO because it was an HBO series. However, Tales from the Crypt was also an HBO series, but The Sopranos was an original series. Tales from the Crypt originally came out as a series of comic books back in the, I think, 60s, and it was by a company called EC Comics. And because of the rights that HBO negotiated with EC Comics, that's tied up in litigation, and you cannot watch it on HBO. But some of us who have it on physical media, can watch it. Strangely enough, there's a horror channel, a streaming channel called Shudder, that is showing the first 2 out of the 7 seasons. Very strange, but hey, that's the way the rights work. So if you still want to watch a couple of seasons of that, you can, but not on HBO, who created or originally aired the series. Very bizarre. But if you own the complete series on DVD, you can watch it whenever. I like that. Also, there's some cool things on DVDs, features that you can't find online. Before they were streaming online, I had Lord of the Rings Extended Edition with a buttload of features on there. There were commentaries on all 3 of the movies that talked about the process of bringing the J.R.R. Tolkien books to the screen from each film and what went on behind the scenes. There were special effects videos. There were behind the scenes armory videos that went on to behind the scenes of the helmets, the swords, the armor, everything they had to make for all the soldiers, because it had to be made from scratch. Nobody had anything like that, even historical stuff, because it's a fantasy. No one had that, so he had to. So anyway, that's some cool stuff that's on feature that was very interesting, but you won't find that on Netflix or HBO or anyone else that's streaming it. So that's another thing. Another thing I thought was cool, that physical media can become a collector's item, and that includes music too. And you may not even think it is. Sometimes you think you get something that you think will be a collector's item, and it doesn't, but something else that is unexpected might. Like when Poison came out with the album Open Up and Say Ah, that was the follow-up to Look What the Cat Dragged In. The cover had a girl painted orange like a tiger, holding her hands, had long nails on it. She was like a tiger, and the cover had her with a really long tongue on the cover. And because that was the 80s, some people, maybe like Chipper Gore or whoever, were offended. And so the cover was changed to a solid black cover that had the Poison logo and the title. And in the middle of the black was a little horizontal bar. It looked like it was stripped away, and you just saw the woman's eyes. So I actually bought a copy of the original cover on a cassette tape and not opened it. I had it for a long time because that was going to be the collector's item. They no longer made it. They were going with the black cover. Well, wouldn't you know it, over the years, they loosened up, things happened, and now the cover you can buy anywhere and everywhere is the full cover with the original tongue and everything, and the one with the blackened cover is the rare oddity. Who knew, right? So that's the thing there. Another thing that's kind of interesting, I was watching a movie called The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. If you get a chance to see it, if you can find it anywhere, it's really hilarious. It's black and white, and it's a parody of those old 50s horror movies and stuff. And the guy that wrote and directed the movie and also stars in it is a writer-director named Larry Blameyer. And he's also a film historian. He does commentaries on some DVDs and stuff. And so, because I liked the movie, I went ahead and bought it. And because I thought it was pretty cool. And I never thought anything about it. It's not anything like it. Anyway, I ended up becoming friends with the guy on Facebook. And so, I read some of his comments and stuff. And he was selling copies that he would autograph since it was no longer in print, out of print. So if you wanted to hit him up. I'm like, really? It's out of print? Went to Amazon, went to some other movie sites. It is no longer in print. And I've been watching this whole time, not thinking anything about it. I thought it was just a little independent parody / homage to these 50s horror sci-fi movies, which it's actually funny because they've got some good talented actors in there and they have to kind of act bad. And if you get a chance to see The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, give it a shot. But who would have thought? And so I bought it because I wanted to watch it whenever I could. Turned out to be a smart move because you can't buy it anymore. It's out of print. So that's kind of a funny thing. And another thing about physical media, a lot of them have booklets with essays and from articles, from critics and people associated with the productions that includes insights that's not found anywhere else. And this is kind of valuable for a lot of movie lovers like myself, but it may not mean to a lot to the average movie media watcher. So when they go to Netflix or wherever, they may just want to watch the movie and not really care about anything else. They may just want to stream documentaries, the latest series, whatever. But the thing is, with a lot of the media, there's a lot of books and little booklets in there. I have quite a few myself that I've read this, like, oh, this is pretty interesting. So, kind of begs the question, does the future of physical media means it's going to mean something to collectors? What about the average person? Probably not. And I think it's also, in a way, kind of a reliance on streaming. You pay for these different services for streaming who may have it for a few months, then they will not have it by the end of the month. Great example, here's the end of June, 1st of July. And what's funny is one streaming service, maybe HBO, will no longer carry the title at the end of the month, but the next month, maybe Tubi or somebody else will. So that's good, and it happens a while. It kind of goes back with these movies that are being licensed to be shown, but then after a while, they disappear. Maybe because they think people lose interest, whatever. But for some people who want to have it and watch it whenever, they can. So I think there's a thing about technology where people become a little too dependent on it, and without really thinking about their freedom to watch or buy or do whatever they want, they're relying on corporations that they pay access to. It's because a lot of it is access. It's not the real deal. Now, another question that kind of gets, comes up is like in the case of Armageddon, When I bought that, great, I have that. What happens when I die? Who gets that? Does anyone get it? Does Kim get everything that access to my account as long as she's able to keep paying the monthly fees for the Prime account? Or what? It's stuff that we all kind of jump into without it really thinking about. But with physical media, it's a lot easier to say, hey, these are yours. I'm giving these to you. You can donate them to the library, donate them to a university. You can hold on to them, do whatever you want. But with so many copies on digital media, it's not so clear cut. And I think that's something that people eventually have to address because it's still kind of new that it's not becoming a big issue. But where a lot of us, we're not getting younger, eventually I think that's going to be a big issue that comes up is what happens when we die. What happens to the media that we bought? Because it's no longer property that we own, or do we? I mean, it kind of becomes a litigation type thing or something. I don't know. See, it's very unclear, kind of confusing. Whereas with a DVD, hey, here, not so hard an issue. But anyway, I know I've been babbling for 11 minutes now. I didn't mean to, but I thought I'd share some stuff. And anyway, this is cool because I don't get a chance to talk about this with really anybody. So, even Kim, she kind of listens for a little while, but after a while kind of tunes out or whatever. But whatever, because she'll watch whatever she wants, and I think that's and a lot of it is streaming. And she will ask me every once in a while if I have something, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And I don't know, I think it just leads a lot later on. But I personally think a lot of companies, there are companies who are still making physical media, and a lot of them are these they produce cult favorites, underground favorites, movies you can't really find everywhere that does have an audience. And gotta admit, I'm kind of weird. I like the little off the beaten track stuff. Even adult titles that some people will have that are people want to collect, that I'm not saying I'm getting on board with that, but I'm saying classics. I don't know. I mean, you can't find anywhere, but as long as it's money, physical media, corporations can make money from that. I mean, it's a fine line, I guess, with a lot of stuff. All right, I'm babbling. I know it kind of reminds me of I don't know if you're familiar with Betty Page. She was a pinup model back in the 50s, known for her bangs and black hair. She did a lot of photo shoots, some videos, some movies and stuff. And after a while, you couldn't buy those titles because they were kind of underground. You had to get the magazine. You had to buy them under the counter. You would have to go up to a particular store that was known for selling them and talk to the proprietor if they had a certain issue or certain things. And if the person did not believe you were a policeman, they would sell it to you. Because at the time, a lot of it was still not allowed to be sold. They were still called obscenity or pornographic, even though today it's very tame. A lot of it just, garter stuff, but a lot of them, well, anyway, I'll just say that I think there'll always be an avenue for some physical media somewhere, but hopefully others out there will think the same thing. But it may be leaning a little away from the mainstream, but I don't know, that's my thought of it. Anyway, all right, 14 minutes. I'm sorry it's so long, I'm babbling, but that's my thoughts, and just thought I'd share. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Bye.